Welcome to Week in Geek, your new comics preview for July 11th. I'm Mike Ortiz.
And I'm the Chris Brown.
What do you got?
Well, I've got one book that I wanted to lead off with, but I'd like to get this enormous thing out of my pile. I'm looking at Enormous, #1 by Image Comics. It's kind of a treasury-sized book. It's $9.99, so it is a little bit more expensive. Not that much more expensive, though, considering so many books are $3.50 and $3.99, and it's huge.
Yeah,
it is enormous. It's a book about a world where there's giant animals. There's some kind of a threat from that. You know, almost like a Godzilla kind of feel, but, you know, it's almost dinosaurs, weirdness. I don't know. Image and Diamond were hyping it a lot, and it looked kind of interesting, and I did not realize it was going to be this large. Yeah. Kind of cool. I kind of like that they did that. Kind of neat stuff.
Fits the premise very well.
Absolutely. So the book that I wanted to lead off with now, Hoax Hunters #1 by Image Comics. This is written by Michael Morrissey and Steve Seeley. We had them in the store here on Free Comic Book Day signing the Hoax Hunters #0. Basically the premise of this book is, you're finding Bigfoots and all those types of shows. What if they really did find Bigfoot? What if there really were those sorts of creatures out there, but these shows attempting to find them are actually to disprove them, so you don't believe they're real? The biggest way to keep it a secret is to have someone looking for it. So, and kind of a neat idea. It's really cool. I read some early reviews on his first issue saying it certainly looks like the fellas have plenty of stories to keep us entertained into the future. And like I said, I really liked that 0 issue, so I'm looking forward to this one here. Then we've got American Vampire, Lord of Nightmares, #2, 2 of 5. American Vampire has been a great book the whole way through. It's written by Scott Snyder. If you're not reading it, you should be. If you are reading it, you should be reading this miniseries. Saucer Country, #5. This is written by Paul Cornell. This book has gotten weird. I like the realistic look at the aliens and kind of, having a Hispanic woman who's going to be running for president. She's like the governor of New Mexico. So you've got this kind of, immigration alien thing going on. But then there's aliens and there's some anal probing, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. And, because the woman doesn't know if she'd been raped or what happened, but something's not right. And then they start to unravel this story, and it's weird, but I like it. I'm enjoying this book. Next up, this is a weird one for me. This is one that you would probably not expect to find in my stack ordinarily. It does have ties to Detroit, going back to a great publisher here in Detroit, Caliber Comics. And Gary Reed is a friend of the show. He was the publisher over there at Caliber. We've got The Crow, #1 by IDW. I'm really liking IDW these days. This one doesn't seem to have anything to do with James O'Barr, other than he created The Crow. He didn't write it. He didn't draw it. Didn't have anything to do there. But I'm curious. I think IDW has been doing really well with some of these licensed properties. That's essentially what this would be. Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm gonna check out the Crow #1. Who knew? Yeah. What year is it?
Yeah.
Well, we've got Dark Avengers 177. I kind of like this book. It's the new Thunderbolts. It still feels like the Thunderbolts. I thought it was just going to full on end up feeling like the Dark Avengers the way it did when Bendis was writing it, and it doesn't. Yeah, you've basically just put Norman Osborn over into the Thunderbolts book, and now he's doing the crap that he does. Pretty good. I like it so far. I am sure it's going to just go back to Thunderbolts soon enough.
Once the Avengers hype or the Marvel Now stuff starts.
Yep. Then I'm looking at Harbinger #2 by Valiant Comics.
You're really digging this new Valiant stuff.
I really am. Now, I was a slappy for the original. So, so that's it. One would only imagine that I'm certainly going to be on board for this new stuff. But you know what? I've been on board for things where I'm like, oh, yeah, I really want to like it. That's not what this is. I like it. The Harbinger first issue was good. Very much feels updated. Pete Stanchek is not necessarily the same guy, but he does have this kid hanging around him who essentially is going to end up being X, from what I can tell. He's the little guy, a little bit more negative. And Pete's done some things here already that... Pete was more of a good guy with good intentions in the original story. This one, he's sort of a wayward kid, and things are going on. And, there was the girl that he ends up with in the original series, of course, who ended up sleeping with Torque and then has the little baby that gets in the future that becomes Magnus. Well, in this, he pushes inside her head to make her like him. Kind of weird. So he's not a particularly likable character at this point, But maybe that's how they can build to make him likable. Start where a place where he isn't.
Right.
But the book itself is really good. Which then leads us to Bloodshot #1. Now, Bloodshot was one of the later books that came in the original Valiant, but they can't work with Solar and Magnus and those kinds of things. So they've got to work with what they already had and try and fit them in. Now, I've not had a chance to read this #1 yet, but I've been liking pretty much everything they've been doing. This art looks great. Who's doing the art on that? It was Manuel Garcia. Is that?
No, yeah, good.
So yeah, it looks like some really good stuff. I liked the Bloodshot series, originally. It wasn't one of my favorites, from the Valiant. I liked Shadow Man. I don't see anything to reboot Shadow Man yet. But if this Valiant stuff keeps going as strong as it is, I think we'll see them all. Mm-hmm. I would love it if they could strike a deal with Jim Shooter and Dark Horse and get Magnus and Solar back, because I don't think those books have been very good over Dark Horse anyway. I think they need what they had with the Valiant background.
Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Hopefully we get it. Looking at Peter Panzerfaust issue 5. I've picked this book every month. Yeah. It's come out. I really like this book. It's Peter Pan in World War II. It's got a nice historical thing going on, but it's also got a nice little whimsical fantasy fairy tale going on. But it fits in World War II. We met Wendy in, the 3rd issue, and then some more with her in the 4th. I can't say enough good things about this book. You should go back. This is probably going to be the end of this story arc. Yeah, brand new story arc begins with the next issue. So this is going to end up getting traded, collected in trade pretty soon. If you hadn't been reading it, if you couldn't find those early issues because they did move pretty quick, get that trade. I'm looking forward to see how this story arc ends. Then I've got the Shade #10. We're starting to get to the end of this series.
2 issues left, I think.
Yep. And it's our walk through the DC universe. It's been really, really cool stuff. We've got different artists in each one. Who's doing this now?
I think that was Fraser Irving.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it looks good. Stuff is good. Now, did he do the last one, or was that Jill? I thought Jill did one recently, didn't she?
Yeah, but I think Fraser Irving did the last one.
Okay. But Shade's been great. If you like that stuff, if you like the old Starman, you like what James Robinson was doing there, Shade's been a great book. Then I'm looking at, you know what? I'm going to go stick with some DC. I got Swamp Thing #11. This has been a great book here. We're getting to the point where we should start crossing the green and the red soon. We got a lot of red backgrounds, so that looks like maybe we're getting some of that with the rot in there. It certainly looks that way. I think Jeff Lemire's, or this is Scott Snyder here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of Scott Snyder stuff, and except for the one I've been complaining about. So I'll complain when you get to it. I think Scott Snyder just does great stuff. Really, really great writer. Moody stuff. And I'm really looking forward to that other book that he did today because he promised me it's going to change my opinion. So let's hope that's the case. I've got Smoke and Mirrors #4 by John Costa or Mike Costa, Ryan Brown, and John Armstrong. John Armstrong's doing the illusions. He's doing the tricks, and it seems like a really, really cool guy. I'm going to have to write him another email because I still don't have my Smoke and Mirrors t-shirt. I was hoping to wear that on the show here on the week we have that. But
what number is that?
This is issue 4. We got one more issue coming.
You got one more month to get that shirt.
Yep. So come on, John. I love this book. I would love to wear a Smoke and Mirrors shirt. This book's been great. A world where magic is real and sleight of hand is the thing that fools everyone. Cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. Then, as I'm getting to the bulk of my stack here, this one is Wild Children by a number of people here. Riley Rossmo's done the art. I don't believe he inked himself, though. Mm-hmm. I believe someone else has inked him.
Very different look.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
The faces look good. Like, it's all there. I mean, it's very much his style, but it's not the scratchiness that you usually get out of his stuff when he inks himself and whatever.
It's almost got a cartoon cell.
Yeah.
It's very simple line work, very simple flat colors.
Yep. Good, very good stuff, and I don't really know what the story's about.
Great cover.
But I believe Riley might have had something to do with the story on this one, too, I think, because he was starting to get in and do a little bit more writing. He did a little bit on the Rebel Blood, and I think he did a little bit more with this, and I know he said he was playing with styles, which is, clear here.
Yeah.
I love Riley Rossmo's artwork. Anytime he's got a book, it's going to end up in the stack, and you're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. So Wild Children, this is kind of a thicker, square-bound book, and it comes in at $7.99. But again, with the rising cost of comics anyway, if you get something that's kind of like a double-sized issue, I guess
this is a little graphic novel.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's worth it, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. What are you looking at there?
Well, I'm going to start off with AVX Versus. This has been a pretty good series overall because there's two stories in each issue, each by a different creative team. Yep. So it's an anthology book. So sometimes you'll get a weaker story and a stronger story. But this is basically the fights. And I've been enjoying the actual main book, actually more than I thought I was going to.
Me too.
And it's got a little bit more meat to it. And I can see why they moved the fights elsewhere, because they're trying to tell a story there. Still got a little ways to go. There's Marvel events can always go off the rails in the last couple issues, but
it's got a Mortal Kombat kind of feel to me
so
too.
far it's good. But yeah, this has been fun. I mean, this is actually
winner.
What I thought. Yeah, I like the fact that they're doing it like that. We're getting to see some creative teams like Rick Remender and Brandon Peterson. Really good stuff. We're getting to see a variety. So it's been a fun book, a good companion piece. I don't see how anybody would get this and not the main book. But if you're getting the main book, this is a lot of fun, too. Next up, the controversial Batman 11 after the reveal in issue 10 that sent the internet ablaze.
Yes, it did.
I was...
Man, you think it's almost tough to anger nerds that much these days, but boy.
So, yeah, there was a big reveal. Do we spoil it? It's been a month.
Yeah, I think we can.
So, the Lincoln... What's his name? Lincoln something?
Lincoln March.
Lincoln March is Batman's long-lost brother. That we didn't know he had, that he didn't know he had.
But Alfred didn't know he had.
So a lot of people didn't know. Now, in the old continuity, there was like 2 issues in the 70s that they promptly ignored. And then in Grant Morrison's Earth 2, Owlman was Thomas Wayne, and Bruce Wayne died along with his parents. So there is a precedent for this. I was not expecting them to pull in the long-lost evil brother into what was a very, very straightforward, very serious Batman story.
But I'm wondering if that's even going to be the case, because Scott Snyder was almost enjoying that everyone was ripping on it.
Yeah.
He was like rubbing his paws together. I, just half-heartedly commented on a Facebook post of his about the Joker's return coming up in, issue 12 or 13. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have to get through issue 11 to decide if I'm even going to keep reading this book. I mean, I've loved it all the way through, but 10, oh, dude. And everybody else continues saying, just, oh my God, I'm so excited about Joker, so excited. He sent me a message, and I could almost hear him on the other end of the computer screen rubbing his paws together like, oh, we got a live one.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost appeared that he was going to take pleasure in having pulled a fast one on me. And I really hope that's what happens.
I just read a little bit of the end. And it makes me go, I want to read the rest of this and see actually how this plays out.
All right. As soon as we're done recording, I'm going to read it before I get my work done today.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been controversial. It's a strange twist and turn.
All right.
But, Scott Snyder's a great writer, so sometimes they can make great twists and turns into something that is more twisted and turned than you thought. Next up is Captain America. Honestly, this book has really lost a lot of steam, and Ed Brubaker has announced that he's leaving the book. I think
he's leaving that book too? I know he's leaving the other book.
He's leaving this book.
Okay. He's leaving Cap altogether, and he's just going to keep writing Winter Soldier?
Winter Soldier. Colin Bunn is going to co-write, and then I'm assuming they're just going to cancel the book and then relaunch it with their Marvel Now.
Okay.
I'll stick with this.
Well, Colin Bunn was co-writing the other one, and that's the one Brubaker's leaving. And
no, he's leaving this too.
Bunn's going to take that one over too?
I think he's co-writing it to the end. Maybe it's not Bunn. Maybe it's somebody else.
Okay.
But Brubaker's going to have a co-writer for a little while. Then he's going to leave to finish up the story. I don't think they've announced who is following him. But again, my presumption is they're going to do like they did when they relaunched Thor, which is give somebody a few months of padding, and then they'll relaunch the Marvel Now Captain America. I'll stick through this book.
And then they'll slam all those numbers in together when they reach 700.
Yeah. So I'll stick with this through the end of Brubaker's run just because I like to have that nice. I mean, it's been an epic, huge run, and he has promised that some loose threads that have been throughout this last 5 years will get wrapped up.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be nice to see this sort of get wrapped up, and I'll join back on when it restarts somewhere down the line. Next up is Chew. This is a special edition Secret Agent Poyo. It's about a badass cyborg. I think he's part cyborg chicken secret agent. That's all you need to know.
He was kind of like the master cockfighter in the early issues, and then they make him a full-on agent.
A cyborg secret agent chicken. That's all I need.
With a history of cockfighting.
If Chew wasn't good enough before, that just took it up a notch. Next up, Fantastic Four Annual number 33. I'm glad that they actually have the old numbering on here. They used to sort of jump around on the numbers there. This is written and drawn by Alan Davis.
That's why you're in.
Yeah. Alan Davis drawing The Thing and Doctor Strange, and yeah, I mean, I pretty much will buy anything that he draws. I don't know if he's that great a writer. He wrote some good stuff, but pretty much I'm buying it for the pictures. Next up, we've got Green Lantern the Animated Series number 4. Oh wow, this looks like it's not.
No, it doesn't look
Art
like
and
it's
Franco. But this has been a solid book. I really like the cartoon. What I think is interesting with this is the regular Green Lantern books have so much continuity and I mean, even though they rebooted, they left the continuity of the Green Lanterns. Even though there are Red Lanterns and Blue Lanterns and Star Sapphires, this is still a very pared down, simple take on Green Lantern. So if you find the other Green Lantern books, all 4 of them especially, because they're all going to come together again in a crossover, if that's kind of daunting, this is really just sort of a simplified version of Green Lantern. It's good stuff. I don't know with this creative team. It was certainly good under Art and Franco. We'll see. Hopefully it continues. Next up is Planetoid number 2. I picked up the first issue of this. It was pretty solid. A guy's basically stranded on this planet. Great artwork. Good. This is a good sci-fi book, and this is the kind of stuff that I think is really interesting. You're not going to get a book like this from Marvel and DC. This is the type of stuff that Image is really doing better than anybody else these days, but with some absolutely fantastic artwork, and we get some different genres. I'm glad that we're seeing sort of a resurgence of science fiction comics, which are usually really good stuff. Next up from Vertigo, Punk Rock Jesus by Sean Murphy. I know 3 things about this book. It's by Sean Murphy. Its title is Punk Rock Jesus. And I know Sean Murphy actually passed up a lot of higher profile, more lucrative projects for this. So this is a real passion project. Yeah, I guess he was offered to do some Batman stuff. And Batman's like printing money. So this is a black and white book, which really showcases his artwork fantastically. I don't know what this is about, but I don't care. I just have enough faith in the work that Sean Murphy has done, and I don't want it spoiled. I mean, it's nice to have something in my stack where I really don't know what it is that I'm reading yet.
My buddy Pat O'Connell over at DC, my sales rep, he had already had a chance to read it, and he just kept going on and on about how great it was.
Well,
then I trust Pat's opinion. If Pat's telling me that he liked something, that's a good recommendation. He's stuff. A guy that if he recommends something to you, you can go ahead and check that out.
Absolutely fantastic artwork. Next up is Revival by Tim Seeley and Mike Norton. This is another really good Image book. It's called A Rural Noir.
And I like Mike Norton's artwork.
I love Mike Norton. He's a fantastic artist. I've read some Tim Seeley stuff. I haven't read a lot of it. I never read Hack Slash, but I read some of the other stuff he did, some of the Marvel stuff he did. This book's been getting a lot of hype, a lot of attention as another Image book to watch. And I was actually very excited about it because I'd seen some previews, and certainly the people involved and a lot of people who were familiar with the project, who watched it evolve, had said a lot of good things. I almost didn't pick it up. And this is just a little rant, a little tangent. These guys have been doing a great job getting out there and promoting the book, which is kind of what you need to do and create your own book and an Image book. And I know Seeley's been doing a lot of podcast interviews, and I've listened to him a lot. And he's actually said some things in these interviews that maybe you should think about tempering a little bit. In a couple of interviews, he basically said things along the lines of, I'm not going to give an exact quote, but in one interview he basically said that in talking about the lack of success for a lot of non-superhero, non-Marvel DC books, he basically said there are people out there who like superheroes, people out there who like comic books, and the two don't meet. And then in another interview, he basically said he didn't understand how anybody who'd been reading comics as long as he had could find anything worth reading at Marvel or DC. And I get these sentiments, and that's the way he feels, that's the way he feels. But honestly, I've been reading comics for longer than Tim Seeley has, and I read a lot of Marvel and DC, and I read a lot of other books, Image books. I mean, you look here, both of us have a really good mix of superheroes and non-superhero, creator-owned Marvel and DC. And when I hear somebody saying that and taking shots at books that I like to promote their own book, it actually kind of makes me think that maybe they don't get it. If you don't understand why I like a Marvel comic, then maybe you are not writing something that I like. You don't get what my tastes are.
Well, and I think that's unfair. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's almost taking pot shots at guys that he works with over at Image. Mm-hmm. Did you miss Tim? that there are guys doing creator-owned books that are superhero books.
Yeah.
The guy who's printing money over at your company right now writes one of my favorite superhero books, and he also writes Walking Dead. Which, would you consider that as a creator-owned indie book, and then the other one's a superhero? The two never meet? Well, the two are literally written by the same guy.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very, very unfair statement to make, I think. I obviously, the superheroes opened the door for me. Mm-hmm. But then there were times where, you know, I would start to find myself liking more creator-owned stuff, things that were a little different, a little more flavor. Then that stuff runs thin for me, and I start to go back. I'm liking the Valiant stuff, which is primarily superhero. Mm-hmm. No, it's not creator-owned, but it has an indie superhero. It's not one of the big two. I think when you're complaining about superheroes, what you're doing, Tim, is you're complaining about Marvel and DC. That's fine. It is kind of hard to get your scraps off the table when you got, you know, the big guys just pushing everybody around. But shopkeeps like myself who do read superhero stuff, who does also read a lot of indie stuff, I may tell one of my guys to pick up Spider-Man and in the same breath tell him to pick up your book. So the two do very much meet, and I think it's a very unfair statement, and you do risk alienating your fan base.
And I do get it. It's very frustrating for a lot of people that that really quality books are not getting the attention that they deserve. But I think that basically, it doesn't help you by potentially alienating an audience. And someone like myself who does and has been buying independent books for 30 years. I mean, going all the way back to, you know, when books like Cerebus launched and Warp and Destroyer Duck and, you know, all the Eclipse books. When I hear somebody taking shots at things that I like and saying that the only reason people like that stuff is out of nostalgia, I have to kind of wonder whether or not I want to continue to support people like that. Now, I did pick the book up because I don't think I want to take it out on him because he's frustrated that a lot of other people don't actually do that. I mean, there are a lot of people who will only read Marvel or only read DC or only read independent. I don't really understand any of that. Read a good book. That's what we've always tried to say. But also from an indie creator standpoint, it doesn't help you much to take shots at your potential audience. Although I do admire his honesty in getting out there and actually saying his mind and taking that risk. There are ways, and maybe just be aware that there's a lot of people out there who do support you and support your work and still love Avengers versus X-Men. So that's my little mini rant.
I would like to add to that, if you're going to take shots at Marvel and DC and say, you know, that those aren't people who really like comic books or whatever, don't do it just in the name of hyping your own book. Why don't you suggest some other creator-owned books that no one's looking at? Like, what is it, the Warrior Pug or whatever that Mike Norton was doing on Battle Pug, which you can find online. What about, you know, like Raph Nieves and Dan Doherty's Bob Howard Plummer, The Unknown? There are some books that guys are struggling just to get out. In the meantime, you're frustrated that Marvel and DC is snagging up all the money, but you've got a pretty solid publisher that's doing just fine. A lot of guys don't have what you have.
Mm-hmm. So, rant over, and now on to Spider-Man. I've got Spider-Man number 3 of 5. This has been a pretty solid book. Again, Peter Parker meets Miles Morales. Can't really say much more than that. It's got, looks like we've got a nice mix of villains, unless the cover is deceiving. It's got some Mysterio, and I always love Mysterio. Great artwork by, I think this is Sarah Pichelli. Like Bendis's other Spider-Man books, it's kind of a slow burn. We've got 3 issues. The guys have met. They fought because that's what heroes do when they meet. And then I'm sure they'll hug it out and go fight the villain somewhere in issue 4 and 5. But overall, it's a solid book, and I really enjoy it. If you like both Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man, I don't see how you're not picking this book up. Next up, Wolverine and the X-Men. This is another AVX crossover. I believe, we got Nick Bradshaw back. I really like his work a lot. I mean, I like Bocello's work a lot, but I don't know, because this is a little bit more cartoony, a little bit more classic comic book style, I just think it's a lot more fun, and it just looks like Art Adams. It's kind of on a bad day, but at least getting a book out. The Imperial Guard, the Shi'ar, have caught wind of the Phoenix coming to Earth, and they, of course, were the ones who wanted to kill Jean Grey in the first place, so they've come to Earth to kill Hope before all this happens, and they don't really care about what the Avengers or the X-Men want. So it's some interesting stuff. Again, Jason Aaron's doing a great job. This has been a good series tying into AVX because we're getting the perspective of the kids at the school a lot. Wolverine's off doing his stuff in the main book, and now we're actually getting the school and the kids, and the kids don't all agree on who is right in this. So that's been one of the interesting things throughout this entire thing.
Yeah,
the fights have been good, but just like with Civil War and some of the other Marvel events, there's kind of moral questions, and you have to pick whose side you're on. So I know which side the store's on. Yes, you made that clear.
Very much an Avengers store.
But
and what I'll say with having Gladiator in there, I think Gladiator has the coolest mohawk in all of comics.
Yes, although
he's got to compete with Punk Rock Jesus this week.
His son is in here also.
Oh, really? He has a better mohawk.
His son, his son. Well, I don't know about better. He's a young kid. Maybe it'll get better over time. But yeah, his son is.
He's got an alright mohawk. Okay.
His son is one of the members of the new Wolverine or Jean Grey school. Because he's got superpowers, so he's got to go to superpower school. It's either that or Avengers Academy. The only choices you got. Fantastic Four, they're not letting too many kids in.
No, that's you gotta be an elite to get into the Future Foundation.
You got to be smart, and the Gladiator's not smart. He's tough. So, what's your top pick? I ask knowingly.
That brings me to my top pick, which should be no surprise to anyone. We got a big week this week with what is going to be the highest selling comic of the year, Walking Dead number 100. I've read it. I already read it. It's good. It is part 4 of the Something to Fear storyline. So while 100 is, the big issue, doesn't all culminate here, but we meet Negan. Don't want to spoil your fun, but for those of us who weren't sure if Negan was real, he is. Negan is real. We lose a character, and I'm sure more fit is going to hit the shan in the next 2 issues. It's, let me reiterate, that no one is safe. No one is safe. I would say, I don't want to spoil anybody's fun, but this is the biggest character we've lost so far.
Oh, wow.
Good stuff, really, really well-written stuff. There's some really interesting lines of dialogue in here. One of them that I was talking about with you earlier that I got a real kick out of concerning Carl. Good stuff. I mean, if you've been reading Walking Dead, clearly you're picking this one up. I guess the question is, how many covers are you picking up?
Yeah, we've got
we got
Todd
8 covers.
McFarlane, Brian Hitch, Mark Silvestri, Sean Phillips, Frank Whiteley,
Ryan Otley.
We got a
Charlie
Chromium
Adlard.
cover. We talk about we got.
What year is it?
We got Valiant Comics this week. We got Crow Comics. We got Chromium covers.
What year is it? This is looking totally like the old Valiant Zeros that they did. The wraparound Chromium.
I think I see a Ninjak number 1 in there somewhere.
So that is my top pick of the week. It's a good book. I mean, this is one that you're going to want to.
This is the biggest book of the year. I mean, this is an event.
Snag this one and read it before someone ruins it for you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my top pick. It's funny. We started off with a larger than normal book, and now I've got a smaller than normal book. You can see size-wise here. It's Richard Stark's Parker the Score, adapted by Darwin Cook. I have loved these books.
Beautiful stuff. Oh my God.
Darwin Cook is really a master of capturing this time period.
Yes.
It's beautiful artwork. The stories are great stories. He's done a fantastic, very faithful job adapting.
It's word for word, is it not? I believe it's a word for word adaptation.
He's actually pulling from the script. That's why he's actually not credited as writer. He's credited as adapted by, because he's using as much of the original text as he can. Obviously, descriptions are not necessarily going to come over because that's what the drawings.
But sometimes you do get those because sometimes there's full pages of prose.
The last one had large text passages with just some images. This one looks like it's back to being all comics.
Okay.
Also, they're all 2-color. The first ones were a black and sort of a grayish blue.
Yeah, like a blue. There was one I thought that was a little orangish.
Well, the oversized one.
Oh, that one was the orange.
They did that in orange, and now we've got that kind of orange second color on this one. Just looking at it, the design of it. This is by IDW. Looks like an old book. It's got real book paper without gloss. I mean, this is very literally a graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
Every year one of these has been coming out. I think they're doing 5 total.
I believe so.
And
there's 2 of them. Then there was an oversized thing, the man with the getaway face that slid in between the 2.
And then they did a Martini edition that had some more stuff, which was oversized actually. But there's just something about the fact that this actually is the size and feel of a nice 60s crime novel. Just great stuff. I mean, I look forward to.
And any
to
other
this
week it
book
would have been
coming
my
out.
pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Chris had it in his stack until I pointed out he had a lot more books than I did this week. So I got to snag it. But yeah, this is great stuff. This is, I liked what Darwin did in that first issue of Minutemen, but it just
I didn't even read it.
But it was one issue, and it felt like it was just the beginning of a story. Here we get a whole story complete. I mean, this is really what Darwin Cook does best, and I think he does this sort of crime noir hard boiled thing a little better than he does superheroes. I think maybe he digs it a little bit more. But this is great stuff. The first two were fantastic.
And it's interesting that you can actually read something from a guy who does great superheroes and does great non-superheroes. That's kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I bought them both. And
Imagine
actually,
that.
I bought this and didn't continue on Minutemen, though I'll probably get it when it's in a nice collected hardcover too, because I'm a sucker that way. But yeah, this is great stuff. And both of the previous volumes of this were so good. Even though we've got a good thick volume here, I just read it in one sitting.
Me too.
Just pick a nice afternoon, and forget about all the other books for a little while, and just have yourself some good old fashioned 60s era. God, this is a beautiful book. Great stuff. Pick it up.
Chad Drodowski, our associate from the Zod Complex, a couple years ago pointed out to me that I should be reading those. Only the first one was out at that point. And he says, Chris Brown, how are you not reading this book? It's all the stuff that you like. How would you not like all the stuff that you like? And he made an impassioned plea that I was like, I do like stuff that I like.
Yeah.
I should try that. And I went out and bought the first one, read it in one sitting, loved it. Went out and bought the second one when that came out, read it in one sitting. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing stuff. If you like stuff, you'd probably like it.
Yeah. Honestly, this was a great week for comics.
Yes.
And Comic-Con is starting.
It's not a good week for keeping your money, but it's a great week for comics.
Yeah. And go see Amazing Spider-Man.
Which, the curmudgeonly the Chris Brown here even liked. Imagine that. I was prepared to hate it last week.
Yeah.
This week, I'm here to tell you Amazing Spider-Man is good. If you can rent a 7-year-old, go see it with a 7-year-old. It'll help.
Yeah, but make sure you get all that cleared, because you can have a little trouble walking into a theater with a stranger and a small child. They got laws against that.
It should be a 7-year-old,
Yeah. Yeah, don't just grab one off the street. That'll get you in trouble.
It could. But with that is your Week in Geek.